and the mic. Hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Bates and retired New York City firefighter, 9/11 first responder, and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
Today's guest, actor in Boy Meets World, Bosch, and Animal Kingdom, William Russ.
My brother.
My brother Frankie, how you doing, brother?
How the hell you doing?
Handling the heat wave. Having a heat wave. Tropical heat wave.
Our guest today before we start is William Russ, famed actor, Boy Meets World, Bosch,
Unbelievable. Did a lot of good
Animal
stuff.
Kingdom.
The Sopranos.
40 years he's been around.
40 years. And like you often talk about, versatile.
Yep, versatile is for sure. But
That's-
before we start, I want to say that we have been awarded a very prestigious award. Derek, can you put it up on screen, please?
Is there any money involved in this?
Well, there might be.
What?
Billy O'Connor has been voted one of the 40 top over 40 personalities by Podcast Magazine.
What?
There's an ad that's going to run. Billy O'Connor has been selected to the prestigious 40 over 40 National Podcasters list by Podcast Magazine. Look at the ads running.
This can't be on the level.
That's on the level.
Why me? Why not you?
Well, first of all, because
Because you're a mook.
you're a Mick. Look at. See the ad's going to run.
Is this on the level? What is this?
Do you think we would go through all the problem of putting this ad together? 100 plus guests have included Rod Carew, numerous Homer Fair members. We talk about podcasts.
Look
So
at you guys. Hey, unbelievable.
it's going to be in the August issue of Podcasters Magazine. So congratulations, you're.
You know, the last time I was on the cover of a magazine, and this is legit, when I was up at UF, my girlfriend was running a very prestigious part of the English department at the college. And of course, I'm running around Gainesville, which is a small enough town, doing dirty jokes. I'm telling jokes, doing stand-up, but I'm doing jokes that are, you see my stand-up. And I wasn't pulling any punches back then because they were all kids. And they were loving the dirty old man thing. So I was playing it up. I'm the dirty old man, 63 years old, dirty Uncle Billy, or whatever, telling jokes. So my girlfriend comes to me and she says, do me a favor. For the love of God, she goes, people starting to pay attention to you doing comedy in this town. And I got a prestigious thing. And they know I live with you, at the university. Could you tone it down a little bit? Could you just, I said, Jesus, I didn't even think about it. I'm really sorry, I'll tone it down. But unbeknownst to me, I hadn't thought about it. 2 weeks earlier, I had done an interview with a guy for what was it, Senior Magazine?
Whatever magazine.
Magazine it was. But it went out to 75,000 people in Florida, right? Senior Times it was. So I told this guy in the interview, I'm manic, I don't see any downside to everything. I don't see clouds, I walk on them. I'm always up, I'm never down. So I go through this whole thing with him, talk about comedy. Well, she tells me to tone it down. I said, no, I will. I'll tone it down. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to embarrass you. And then it goes out to 75,000 people. They got me on the covers of Senior Times. And the lead is Billy O'Connor uses stand-up comedy to combat mental illness. And she takes the cover and she throws it at me. And she says, thanks a lot for toning it down. I didn't even know. I didn't think about it. I forgot about it, But, so that's pretty cool, man. Thank you guys very much.
You bet. And congratulations are also in order. I think we mentioned this last week, but on your birth of your third, fourth, fifth grandchild?
Third. Yeah. And Meg's first. It was.
And you just got back from a trip to New York. How was that?
On the way there, JetBlue, the red eye. And I take those things for a reason, because when you're traveling to New York, the first thing you got to think about, like LA, what time am I landing and what's the traffic going to be like when I get there? You don't want to land in New York at rush hour, crazy. Red eye going in, JetBlue, cool, seat in the middle, empty, nice flight, no problem. Coming back. And I heard Newark, Florida, and New York are the worst right now for traveling because of canceled flights, congestion, the grief. Well, I get to Newark. Well, first of all, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm staying at my friend's house in Yonkers, and he lives on a side street off McLean Avenue. Anybody who knows Yonkers? So I said, geez, I got to get an Uber at 4 o'clock in the morning. I gave my friend back his car. I borrowed my friend's car.
And Jenny's with you, of course.
Of course. And, bags, the whole deal. So I checked the Uber.
The biggest beggars of them all is you, but
yeah,
I digress.
Without a doubt. So, another thing, but before I even get to this story, when I get to New York, turns out because of the July 4th holiday, her meds, she's on the pain meds, and she's been on them for 3 years, and she's supposed to get her meds. And they won't transfer them from California to New York, interstate or some grief like that, so she can't get them at Walgreens. So she's in pain. And I got a week in New York, and she's in bad pain, and she's coming off withdrawal. She's like, this is like 3 years they got her on these things. So I call up my friend Crazy Steve. I said, look, hey, Steve, this is a long shot, brother, but you wouldn't have any tramadol. Tramadol? Yeah, I got it. What else you need? I got oxycodone, I got this, I got that. Yeah, come on, by the way, I got everything you need. So
I hope his name's not Steve.
It's Crazy Steve.
Crazy Steve, yeah. So he tightened this up. God bless the misspent youth. And she had called 3 or 4 urgent cares, and they wouldn't even deal with it because painkillers in New York's got one of the toughest drug laws in the country. No way she could get painkillers.
That's why they got the fewest drug addicts, right?
Yeah, right. That shit works. I remember one time I'm going through the Bronx, and I saw a guy like in a corner, and I thought he was, wow, look at this guy. He's doing
a mime.
Taekwondo or something. He's over there going like this. And then when I got closer, it was just a junkie going into his nod. But anyway, so Crazy Steve tightened this up. So now 4 o'clock in the morning, we're going home. And I call the Uber, and thank God at 10 to 4, the guy says, the Uber's Troy, the Uber driver, is going to be there in 3 minutes. Great, we're covered. Because otherwise I'm in a jackpot. I'm not going to get to the airport. Well, Troy shows up, and he's a Rastafarian, right? Well, I can see the guy is blazed. I know the symptoms. This guy's high as a kite. He's got the music blasting, jazz. Yeah, I'm going to get you out to the airport, no problem, And as we're going out there, because it's the Washington Bridge, we're going into Newark, no matter what time of the morning, it's the Washington Bridge. And this guy, I hear the horns beeping and trucks, and I'm in the back looking at my GPS going 11 minutes to the airport. I'm flashing Jenny, 9 minutes to the airport because the ride is like,
right.
I'm a little, this guy's going to kill us. And going across 6 or 7 lanes, by the time we get to the airport, he missed so many turns that he just said, well, I'll still catch it. Beep, beep. And I'm in the back like this. It reminded me when I was in Bangkok, I swear to Christ, and this is true. They don't have driver's license. You don't got to get a driver's license in Thailand. You just get behind the wheel of the car and you drive. So the first time I'm experiencing this, we're in downtown Bangkok, and it's like 6 lanes. And this guy says, I'm going to make a right-hand turn. He just starts to make a right-hand turn. As he's making it, it's beep, beep. Traffic is backed up, beep. And I'm like, whoa. Of course, I'm blazed up in the back. I'm high as a kite. This is Thailand. And I said, whoa, what are you going to do? You're going to kill us. He goes, stops, looks at me as he's driving. No can die. Have Buddha. Have Buddha. No can die. I said, maybe Buddha's not looking. What about me? I don't have Buddha. Yeah, but that was the kind of experience.
And that is an example of why you're one of the top 40 podcasters in America, because who the hell's got stories like that?
A mishap, Frank. It was a mishap. But then we get to the airport, and of course, I'm sitting through the hour and a half. Really a nightmare. An hour and a half to get to security. We get up to security, and they're breaking her balls. They won't let her on a plane because the ticket says Jennifer O'Connor, and her passport says Jennifer Beal. Because of the pandemic and the surgeries, she didn't get a chance to change the name on the passport. And they wouldn't let us on a plane. And they made us go back to check in and have us change the ticket, which they wouldn't change. And they said, just go back and tell them you're on the back end of a round trip ticket. And now we had to wait an hour and a half again, and not sure if they're going to let us on the plane. And by this juncture, she's like, that's what I'm fucking. Why did you change the goddamn passport? What the hell's the matter with you?
She didn't have a driver's license?
Yeah, but a driver's license says Jennifer Beal as well. Thank God it was a health card that finally got her on it. She had another Jennifer O'Connor on it. So it was a nightmare.
As much as I admire your 40 over 40 by Podcasters Magazine, I wouldn't want your life for for anything in the world.
I feel like the wonderful world. What was that guy that always walked around and everybody was always a mess in the cartoons? What the hell was it? I don't know. Anyway, that's my life. So we're gonna have William Russ on today.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, why don't you get him on now?
Whose life was probably nothing like mine because he had a charmed life.
No one's life is like yours. Derek, can you bring on Bill Russ?
There he is.
Billy, how you
doing? Hey, guys.
Good to see you.
Hey, guys. Nice to meet you.
That's Billy O'Connor.
How are you, Bill? Nice to know you, brother.
And that's my friend Derek Harris on the control.
Hey, Derek.
Derek control. Derek will... Your fate lies in Derek's hands.
Now, are you Bill, Billy, William, or Rusty? What should I call you?
Rusty's fine. Just don't call me late for lunch.
Okay, brother.
So
be comfortable with it.
I was talking to John Larroquette over the weekend, and I said, "You know Bill Russ, don't you?" He said, "No, I don't think so." He said, "William Russ, you don't know him? Rusty Russ?" He said, "Oh, I know Rusty."
Yeah, I know John way back.
Where'd you work with John?
Well, I just knew him from around. I'm trying to think if we actually worked on anything, but we were friends, and he's from Louisiana too, I think, and Larroquette.
Yeah, so
Great New Orleans, man.
That's how your name came up. We were talking about. I was saying my friend Eddie Herbert, who knows you.
Eddie Herbert, your friend?
Eddie Herbert, my friend, Chef Eddie Herbert. He used to have the restaurant.
Who grew up down the street from me?
Yes. He grew up down the street.
That's right.
He used to run the Lincoln Bay Cafe.
Exactly.
Over in Santa Monica, and he always talked about growing up with Rusty Russ. But Larroquette said you grew up in Michigan. So
no.
Let's find out, where exactly are you from?
Well, I'm a Navy brat.
Okay.
So I was born in. It would be the naval base, Portsmouth, Virginia, Norfolk, and then we moved. My brothers were born in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Portsmouth, Maine, and then I came. Then we ended up in New Orleans for about a couple of years. Then we moved to Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville.
And then we moved back to New Orleans.
You're from When were you in Jacksonville?
When I was a kid, when I was about 10 years old.
How old were you? What years?
I'm
trying to find out if they're the Artist Gilmore years or not.
No, I don't know. That would be, I don't even remember now, 1960. Oh, I don't remember now, 61 to 64.
Okay. But so did you go to school in New Orleans? I'm trying to figure out for Larroquette so I can tell him exactly when you were in New Orleans. So you were in New Orleans twice? Did you go to high school?
I was in New Orleans from, let's say, I was 5 years old, so 1955, till I was 10 years old, from maybe 1960. And then I was back in New Orleans. I went to so many different schools. My friends were in a school called St. John Vianney, which was actually an experimental seminary for Catholics boys to become parish priests.
Yeah, Billy would have been thrown out of that.
Recovering Catholic.
Well,
recovering Catholic as well?
Recovered? I don't think I've recovered yet.
So New Orleans.
Then I finished my high school at Jesuit High.
Okay, so you went to Jesuit High School.
My senior year.
Same as Jay Thomas.
Oh, no, yeah, same as Jay. I worked with Jay, yeah.
Yeah, you worked with Jay in a Judith Light movie, didn't you?
That's right. We did a TV movie where, it was a sad movie, like most of those TV movies. I went through a period where I played, the husband of the actress of the month.
And the actress of the month was Judith Light.
At that month, yeah, and she's a great actress, and a lot of great actresses I was able to work with.
I've got a picture of you with Judith Light that I didn't know that Jay's and Jay together, that I'll send Derek, and Derek will put it up in post. So, so now you're on. Now, of course, you had a great run on Boy Meets World, and we'll get to that in the future. But you're on Animal Kingdom now, right? Aren't you?
Well, I did a couple of shows. I did about 3 shows for Animal Kingdom. It was really fun. I got the job mainly because of my hair, but Whatever works for you, babe.
Well, your hair was different than it is now. Why don't you describe your hair?
Well, it was COVID hair. It was like 1968. I would have been cast in hair. It was down to my shoulders. It was pretty, actually. It was actually kind of amazing to go through a year and a half without a haircut.
And you're in the final season of Animal Kingdom now, which is currently running. I think they're on the third or fourth episode now, but it's on TNT. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, TAT and USA maybe.
Well, it's getting rave reviews. Frank told me and Derek told me I got to watch the show. They told me it's terrific.
Oh, you love it.
Yeah, and you won't recognize Rusty.
Not with the hair.
Not with the hair.
Yeah, so it's easier to watch.
How long are you in this business, Billy? How altogether, Rusty? How long are you in this racket?
Well, it depends on when you say when. My first paying job was maybe I got to be 22, but the last time I worked as a waiter, cab driver, cook, bartender was maybe I was 26, 27. And I finally got an agent, and the first thing he did in New York was get me on a soap. So I didn't have to be a waiter. And my first soap job was Another World. I think that was probably around 1976, 77.
So you did that and The Young and the Restless as well as soaps, right? And from what
yeah. I came back many years later. The producer had actually worked Another World and asked me to come in for a bit. And I said, sure, hard work. It's so much harder now than it was when I did it earlier. So much work. You'd have 30 pages a day and no rehearsal. You just come in and go here, go here, go here. And you had to be ready to go 12 hours a day.
And you ask, where can I write my lines? On the bottom.
Yeah, whose forehead can I use?
On the bottom of ashtrays and the bottom of drink glasses, coffee cups. You look at it, you say, "Ho, so Daphne."
Yeah.
So Daphne. So you really hone your chops. You really hone your chops on those soap operas, right? We've had a couple of soap opera stars that say it's tough racket, tough business.
It's hard work. You got to be prepared. There's no discovering the role. You come in, you're ready to go, Ben.
So by 1982 or 1983, you were in the pilot episode and in the second episode also of Crime Story with our good friend Stephen Lang. How did you go from waitering to Crime Story in a relatively short period of time? You were killed in Crime Story, but you were shot in a phone booth, I believe. That wouldn't happen these days because there are no more phone booths.
Bad Dog Cole, I think, was the last
I know.
Legit got shot.
He was shot in the Apple store.
Yeah. How'd you make that leap so quickly?
Well, Crime Story came after. Actually, I just got lucky, as you know, you need a little bit of luck in this business. If not a lot of luck. And
there's that word again.
Someone had called me. I'd done Miami Vice, and I had done a guest star on Miami Vice. Just casting director in New York called me up and said, "We got a part for you called Sandy Bresler." I was in L.A. at the time. And I said, "Yeah, it's the hottest show in the world. Let's go." And I went down to Miami and I shot Miami Vice, an episode called Avid. And for some reason that just hit. And then Crime Story came along. I loved, Michael Mann offered me, said, "What do you want to do in this?" And I said, well, at the time I was so full of myself, I didn't really want to be a regular. And I said, well, he said, "I got a part the guy gets killed." And I said, "Okay, I'll do that." And it was so much fun. It was such a great bunch of guys and such a vision that Michael had, and Ferrara, who directed it, Abel Ferrara. And it was just a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Well,
I kind of shot myself in the foot a number of times during my career, but I'm not complaining. I've had a great, great run.
Well, I see you were in Cruising, which was a great movie with that Don Scardino was also in that, wasn't he? Why don't you tell us?
Oh, yeah, a lot of New York actors. That was the Al Pacino days. I had done a play.
That's Billy's looking at me perplexed. But
Scardino was an actor too?
Sure he
Oh, I
was.
didn't know that.
Oh,
He's a terrific actor.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, you ought to watch our interview with Don.
Yeah.
I remember the interview, and I remember Don, but I also remember him talking about, being...
He also was in Jesus Christ Superstar on Broadway. Do you remember any? Let me just Bill.
This is about Billy. This is
I
not
know,
about me.
but Billy's got to understand that this is one of the top podcasters, 40 over 40. He was a drug addict and alcoholic, et cetera, illegal bookmaker, 9/11 first responder, veteran of the New York Fire Department for 20
Vietnam,
years.
I got a few holes in my head.
At Vietnam vet. At 58, he went back to school. At 62, he graduated from the University of Florida, and he's lost a lot of his marbles. And right now, we're witnessing one of those.
All right. So anyway, Don Scardino was an actor, and
Yes,
and
and Cruising was the first gay movie.
right. I
So-
remember Cruising. Who
Of
was, the
course.
star,
Well,
who was the star of Cruising?
Al Pacino.
Exactly. Correct.
So
you remember Al, Billy? You remember Al?
Sure, I remember Al. He's a Bronx boy. Al's from the Bronx.
So you were in that movie?
Yeah, well, I met Don Scardino. We had done a play called Kid Champion. I had a very small part. Actually, I moved more furniture than spoke in the play, but it was with Christopher Walken. And it was about a rock star, and Don Scardino was one of the Chris Walken's bandmates. And so we had a great time doing that play. And but yeah, Don Scardino, talented guy.
And didn't you appear with Al Pacino in another play?
Well, I went in. I was on Broadway in the basic training of Pavlo Hummel.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
Working
Yeah.
with Pacino on stage, was that a bit intimidating? Let me ask you an outside question. Who was the most professional? You've worked with a lot of great people. I mean, I'm looking at you on The Sopranos. You run so many great stuff. The Right Stuff, great movies. Who was the most professional guy, in your opinion, that you ever worked with?
Gosh, I gotta say, who comes to mind is one of the most. I mean, everyone was really pretty good, and Burt Lancaster.
Wow.
I'm remembering just Burt always being there, ready to go, ready to rehearse, ready to shoot.
Another Bronx guy, They were Clinton. Yep.
And yeah, shooting down in Mexico, and
What was the name of the movie you worked with him on?
it was called Catalani and Little Britches.
Remember that?
Lamont Johnson directed it. It was Burt Lancaster, Rod Steiger. I was in the gang with Burt Lancaster, Scott Glenn, Buck Taylor. Oh, God, what an adventure. Mexico, Durango.
Yeah, what's the furthest you traveled?
Oh, I don't know. That's probably about it.
No,
That's pretty far.
Durango, Mexico?
Yeah, the mountains of Durango.
Who,
Or Hawaii.
who influenced you as a kid, Rusty? Who was the guy who influenced you that made you want to be an actor? Was there any particular actor that influenced you?
No, I didn't even decide to become an actor till I was a sophomore. I was in the University of Michigan. I just wanted to get away from home, and somehow I got accepted to Michigan as an athlete. And I got there, and this is 1968, and there wasn't a lot of school going on. But I spent a year there, and I came back, and I worked in the shipyard during the summer as a tack welder in New Orleans. I went back to Michigan. Didn't quite know what I wanted to do. Someone said, why don't you, hey, can you do a scene or something for me? I said, what's that? For a speech class? And I said, sure, what do I do? He said, well, you learn the lines and you do this thing. And I said, oh, okay. And I learned the lines and did it. And somebody said, oh, you're really pretty good. And I went, oh, maybe this is what I should do. And then I had blinders on because it was like the first time I always remember feeling, oh, this is where I belong. This is a place I can be. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was thinking about this the other day. And then, as I said, the blinders were on. Then I just did theater. And I only thought about theater. That was the only professional actor I had had any contact with were theater actors at the University of Michigan, really. And I thought that's what I would do, be in a repertory company. Or I would have been happier than a pig in you know where. it would have been fabulous. Everything else is just, wow, that door open, I guess I should go through it. And I got very lucky.
Well, anything to get you out of being a tack welder in New Orleans is a door open. I got a brief story. I got to tell you a real quick story. I was a welder's helper, which is worse than being a welder. I was a welder's helper in the Gulf of Mexico on an oil rig. My brother got me the gig. And
why are we first hearing about Derek? Why are we
just
hearing about this for the first time?
They got me crawling into. Now it's August, right? It's August in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. I'm on a metal platform, a huge oil rig, and they got me crawling into 36-inch pipes, right? And when they're joining these pipes, they weld them from the outside. I'm on the inside with a buffer, right? And I'm crawling into these long 36-inch pipes, and it's so hot that they got these two huge fans blowing in there, right? Now I'm doing this for about all of 30 minutes, and I got fucking metal spokes all over me from the thing sticking to me from the sweat and everything else. And I said, that's it, I'm out of here. Like, so I'm crawling out the pipe like this, and I'm dripping sweat, and there's this coon ass who's the welder, and he looks at me and goes, you done got yourself a job this time, didn't you, boy? I said, get me off this freaking thing.
Yes.
Get a helicopter, get me out of here.
And since you, me, and Rusty are the only three people that know what a coon ass is, Rusty, why don't you explain what a coon ass is, Rusty?
Well, it would be the same as possibly what other people would maybe call a hick.
A hick.
Or a farm boy.
Forget that.
But yeah, I worked in the shipyard, and I know, Billy, man, you would have to put on your leathers, and you always had to wear long sleeve. I'm wearing one now, Levi shirts and pants and boots.
Tough gig.
And it was a tough gig. I remember a guy say to me, and I worked, I like to go get my work done. I was a plumber's helper. Go tack up the hangers and get it done. And he'd say, okay. I'd say, okay, man, I'm done now. And he'd look at me and go, what have you done? You done already? I said, yeah, I'm done already. He said, oh, well, why don't you go get yourself a piece of sandwich? Find a place to lay down for a minute or two.
You do the accent great, man. You got the accent.
Yeah, he said, go get me that Peter Pop over there. What?
Don't you say nothing to me now? No.
No,
You got the accent down perfect. Get a piece of sandwich. Unbelievable. Oh, yeah. So did you live in the quarter? I mean, did you spend a lot of time in the quarter?
No. Look, I was out in the suburbs like most kids. I didn't live in New Orleans proper. We're out along the river in a place that was then called Harahan, about a mile from the river. I had 5 brothers and sisters, and we were just like little crazy Indians running around. In those days, there were woods everywhere. We'd run down to the river and, go catfishing, fish in the lagoon, do silly stuff like that. But I grew up. I was able to go down there. Obviously, Mardi Gras was a huge, huge party. So I learned to party early, Billy. I mean, you and I got a lot of things in common. We may have known each other in another life. Believe me.
You never know. Well, you talked about Maine before. I used to take a girl up to Maine to bang her.
Oh gosh!
I had to push that, Frank. You know what I mean? Just a quick line.
So we would be remiss if we didn't talk about Boy Meets World. One of the seminal shows of the 90s, 158 episodes you did, worked with Ben Savage, Danielle Fishel, Ryder Strong, Bill Daniels. Why don't you tell us about how you got the audition, what the audition was like, what the first episode was like? I've got so many questions because, it came back in 2014 or so as Boy Meets World, which I produced and got to work with Billy then. So why don't you tell us all about that? And there's no shortage of words you can use. Just talk.
Well, it was a funny time in my career. I was kind of in between things, and I was, an actor. You just never know. You have to, and a lot of people can't be actors because they can't deal with that uncertainty. And I was at a point, I had a baby girl, my beautiful wife and partner, Clare Wren, and I was in between jobs. And I remember they actually asked me, and honestly, they said, would you like to audition for this show, this TGIF type show? And at the time, I got to say, I didn't get the genre. I didn't get the 3-camera thing. I didn't understand it. And I said, no, really, I don't want to do that right now. I just wasn't comfortable with it, and I didn't know how it worked. And I literally passed. And and they said, okay, all right, we understand. And then Michael, they went ahead and they shot a pilot with a wonderful actor playing the father.
Do you remember who that was?
It was Matt. Jesus, sorry.
Matt somebody. Matt.
Yeah, you look it up. I
not
totally
LeBlanc.
forget. No, not LeBlanc. Anyway, it turns out. But anyway, they shot the pilot, and then for whatever reason, they had an order. Now they had an order for 13, and they came back to me. And for whatever reason, Michael had seen a movie I did,
Michael
movie.
Michael Jacobs, the executive
Michael
producer,
Jacobs,
who had seen Pastime,
exactly,
which was produced by Jeff McCracken, who was also a guest on our show, and who would go on to direct probably 50 or 60 episodes of Boy Meets World. But continue.
Yeah, and they came back to me and said, "Look, they still would like you to possibly do this. Michael really wants you to look at it and come in and read it. They want to recast." And at that point, I said, "Wow, okay." I mean, one of my philosophies is if you're banging your head against door A and door B opens, I think I'm going to walk to door B and stop banging my head. And that's kind of what I did. I said, "Sure, all right. What do I do?" And I go to ABC, and in those days, you went up in front of the big muckamucks and all the heads of the studio and the network, and I just gave an audition and just did what I, love to do, is just be there and do the best I can. And by the time I drove home, they called me and said, "Well, you got the job." And I remember at the time, and I'm not the only actor that's felt this, a wave went over me of relief and gratefulness and wow, okay. and that was it. And I was like, wow.
And also they had already gotten an order. So you went home with 13 episodes times whatever fee in your pocket. And that's a really nice feeling.
Oh yeah, that was actually, of course, there was much more involved at that point than doing just the pilot at the time. And it was like, so yeah, I was grateful and excited.
You talked earlier, Rusty, about when you took an appearance, like it was a one-off, like you got killed in the first episode. That was good with you because you didn't want because you said you were full of yourself. I mean, how many years later was this that you realized that this could be the best gig I ever had? Financially, certainly.
Well, I didn't know, and I thought, because I only planned so many months ahead, sort of as an actor, and I'd been very fortunate, and I had done a bunch of things, and I had done Capital News, a couple other series, and but you never really relax about that. But yeah, I was very excited. This is it's only like, well, gosh, when did we start? 91, 92? So it was 3 or 4 years where things didn't pan out the way I thought they would or hoped they would. And at that point, yeah, I was like, okay, I need, sometimes like a lot of people, why do you work? Because I need the money.
Yeah.
Actors are so special. Like, most people work for money.
Well,
a lot of times.
Our friend Stephen Lang used to say, when I get up on January 1st, my one goal in life is to make my year.
Make the nut.
I gotta make my year. Make the nut. That's what I set out to do.
And we've talked about it many times. All the many guests we've had over the 2 years of doing these podcasts, and luck keeps coming into the equation, and flexibility, being flexible. And God damn it, reading your resume, if anybody was flexible, it's been you, man. I mean, you've done some great stuff. I mean, you're on stage with Joey.
I don't want to go off of Boy Meets World yet,
okay?
Because
But here's the thing. Here's what's interesting is I was so naive to the genre. Even the table read. I didn't, I would go to table reads. I've done all hour shows. I'd never done a half hour. I'd done all, whatever they were, Capital News with the great David Milch and various shows. And you'd sit around the table and sometimes if you wanted to get cup of coffee, you could get up and go. And I remember I was at the table with a boy, and we read, and it was great. And at some point, I'd gotten up to get some water and went back to my seat, and then we did the table read. Everybody gave their stuff and talked about it. And then I went into my trailer, and David Traynor, the director, wonderful, beautiful director, came in and said, "They noticed you got up and went to get some water. Don't do that." And I was like mortified. I was mortified that I had done something wrong. It's like being an altar boy and spilling the holy wine. It was like,
Yeah.
this is something you didn't do.
So,
But that's how naive I was about the whole genre and the way it was shot, the way it was read, and the way it was written. I learned quickly because I was surrounded by some great guys, and I had to keep up with those kids. Those kids were so wonderful and smart and beautiful.
what was it like working with Danielle Fishel and Ben Savage?
Oh, they were this. I gotta say, everyone says it's a cliche, but they were the sweetest kids in the world. I loved working with them. They were so open, and they were so free, and they were so excited to be there, and it was a joy, and I learned so much in the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks from those kids, just watching them go at it and work, and I'm sitting there with all my complicated, artistic devices.
Your actor shit in your head.
Yeah, just stuff in my head, which doesn't help an actor at all. And I just follow their cue. It was a joy. It was a joy, and I learned something every day. That's what was so beautiful about it.
And how did they change over the years with success?
Well, I don't know if they did change. We all change. And of course, you're going to change a lot when you're 12 to when you're 19, hopefully. And, it's only when everyone got a little older and, got their cars and their phones and were getting ready to go to college and, your adult personality starts to come out, and you grow, hopefully, and we know each other so well at the time. They were pretty much the same. Ben went his way in certain things, and everyone grows up. A writer was always what he still is now: beautiful, intelligent, well-read, educated, sweet guy, and his brother and his parents were great. Danielle, I'd love to see her blossom and change over I haven't seen them as much over the last 20 years, obviously, but they've all grown into these really wonderful human beings. Will Friedle, a sweetheart, and we still laugh out loud together.
And what was it like working with John Adams? Billy Daniels.
With Mr. Daniels, oh my God, what can I say? Bill and I had actually worked twice before. We'd done a TV movie called Rehearsal for Murder, which was me and Bill Daniels and Jeff Goldblum and Robert Preston and Lynn Redgrave.
Wow.
Madeline Smith, great cast. I know, really, wow, huh? And then I had done St. Elsewhere. I'd done 3 episodes of St. Elsewhere, where it followed St. Elsewhere, the hospital, over 30 years. And so I met Bill, a couple of times before. And actually, when I knew he was in the show also, I was like, wow, how can I not be a part of this? But Bill was great. We've been friends over the years, and I've seen him just recently, and he's still a joy, one of my joys to be able to. I've been very fortunate to work with some icons, from George Burns to Burt Lancaster to Rod Steiger to Bill Daniels.
Yeah,
for goodness sake.
Bill Daniels can be seen almost every day having lunch at the same table at Art's Deli in the Valley with his wife, who he's been married to. What have they been married for? 70-something years? 60-something years?
Probably, yeah. They met in college.
And what's his wife's name? Do you remember?
Bonnie Bartlett.
Bonnie Bartlett, who was also a terrific actress.
Oh, terrific actor.
Terrific actor.
Terrific actress, yes.
And he was well, I said John Adams, but he starred in Broadway musical 1776 on Broadway, didn't he?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as John Adams.
As John Adams.
As John Adams, huh?
Yes, and the high school in Girl Meets World, in Boy Meets World, was John Adams High School, named after Billy Daniels' role in the play 1776. And then when we came back, who knows, 20 years later to do Girl Meets World, we named this junior high school that the kids went to John Quincy Adams Junior High School. So
Too cool.
too cool indeed.
Well, we had Danielle Fisher on here, and she was great.
She turned into a terrific director.
Oh yeah.
She's doing, a lot of Disney shows, and she knows where the jokes are, and she knows where the cameras should go. And that's the important thing for a director.
Well, you've been acting and directing. Well, what do you prefer? Do you prefer acting, or do you prefer directing, or you just prefer a paycheck, or is there a...
Well, directing I fell into, and honestly, I just was finding my way and relied on people around me for the most part. And it was just a great opportunity. And if I went back to school, I'd probably go back to directing. I enjoyed it. I love acting. The acting is so kind of pure, and you can just kind of live in the space for a bit. It's so beautiful, and it was like the first place that I found that I felt really comfortable. But by the time I came into directing Boy, now by then I'm like 45 years old. I'm 50. And I just had enough knowledge just to walk out there and try not to trip over the cables. And I knew enough to listen to people who actually, hopefully, knew more than I did. And then the cast and the writers and the producers, everyone was so helpful. And it was just a joy to direct. And I love the stress, directing is like a lot of directors will tell you, I'm sure you've heard it a million times, you just have to answer a lot of questions all day. And I would answer them whether I knew the answer or not. But fortunately, it came through and nobody got hurt.
Nobody died, huh?
Not yet.
I looked through your resume, and like Billy O'Connor, I'm just amazed at the breadth and depth of your work. I noticed you did 5 episodes of Boston Legal as the ADA Christopher Palmer. What was that like to work with that cast?
Oh, well, it was a great cast. And Bill D'Elia, who was the producer, director of that, was beautiful enough to bring me in and let me play on their set for a while. It was a great cast. And again, most of, everyone really, they're so professional. As you know, Frank, you don't have time to fuck around with TV shows. You got to come in and go to work. And, everybody had, their own little world. But, honestly, most of the people I've worked with, and I work with some, like I said, a lot of different people, I've never really had much problem with anyone. And everyone usually comes to work. If there's some delay, a lot of times it's technical. But for the most part, of all the, if you add it up, I don't know, 100 actors, 100 shows, whatever, most have been just a joy and fun to be there. And most people really enjoy that. And when they didn't, it was more sad than anything. When people didn't appreciate where they were or their work or the people around them. It can be aggravating, but for the most part, it was sad to see that. But I got to say, in my experience, it was very rare, and most people were very happy to be sitting in a chair, like I still would do on a set, sit there in a chair on a stage, going, "Oh my God, I'm a professional actor." I can just eat anytime I want and sit in a chair with my name on it. I never lost that, and I missed that. It was great. It was really fun.
Well, you shared, like I said before, you shared the stage with Joanne Woodward, Al Pacino, New York stage. You did Macbeth. I mean, you're pretty much a purist. I mean, do you feel more comfortable on stage or on film, or do you feel more comfortable on TV? Or
Well, the stage, it was interesting because when I went to New York, that's all I thought I'd do. I never thought of anything else. TV and movies, that was like for really talented, handsome, beautiful people. I thought I'd be a stage actor. That's all I thought I'd do. I didn't really, I don't think I ever even got to audition for a TV show. I was just in New York driving a cab, being a bartender, being a waiter, doing a showcase, hoping to get into a good play, and hoping just to get an agent who could maybe get me a job on a soap, and then I could just do theater. Because the last year I was in New York, I did like 5 plays, and I did soap opera for a year, and that's what I thought I'd do. And then all of a sudden, as I said, someone offered me a TV movie, and at the time I had some personal problems in New York, and I said, "Well, I'm just going to go to LA. I'm just going to stay for a while." But the stage, I think, is where you really learn as an actor, because it's your medium. You're in control. What the audience is seeing, for the most part, is you. Obviously there's lighting and sets and all that, but you're the medium. And not so much on TV or film. It's the director's medium, more. But no, I love, the stage is fun and beautiful and it's exciting. And that's where you learn to really work. You forget that you would rehearse a play for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, and then go out and do it every night. You can't replace those skills.
Do you remember your Broadway debut?
Well, I was replacing someone, so it was a great part. It was a part of the bully who bullies Pavlo Hummel all during the play. I'm like getting into fights with Pavlo Hummel and just going crazy every time he walks into a room. And I was replacing someone, and they were so great. I rehearsed, and they brought in the whole cast, and the whole cast was like, oh my God, there was so many people in it that went on to be terrific actors and movie stars. But they came in and we did a dress rehearsal just for me and another couple of guys, and we ran through the play, and I was so excited. And I had Danny Hedaya was like my confidant in the play. I don't know if you remember Danny Hedaya. Danny Hedaya played Nixon.
Yep.
Danny, a wonderful actor, and he would just say, "Okay, exit right. We're going behind the stage. Run over here. Okay, wait a minute. No, not yet. Not yet. Now, go." And we'd make an entrance somewhere, and I'd hopefully knew the lines and jump in. And then he would say, "Okay, exit right. All right, let's go down this thing." And then I'd run downstairs. He said, "We've got like 15 minutes. There's a constant poker game going on underneath the theater." And then we'd run back up, and then he would say, "Okay, we're entering left over here. Remember, this is the scene where you say, Al, go fuck yourself again and again and again." I go, "Oh, okay, right." So it was a blank to me. It was just a blank the first night, of course.
Did you ever
but all those guys were so great.
Did you ever go up on your lines?
Nothing weird, no. No, I don't remember going up on my lines, but that's probably because I don't remember.
We had Jeff McCracken on here, and I think he said, I could be, my memory's a little faulty, as Frank will tell you, but you really don't make any money on Broadway, right? I mean, it was the soaps that paid the rent, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, you didn't make money, compared to TV or soaps, because I was doing, and who got on Broadway? I mean, I'm not a big musical guy, and most of Broadway was musicals. God knows, I wish I had that talent. I love that talent. Look at me, I'm on stage. God, I wish that another life. But mainly you're working off Broadway in the small houses then, where we were lucky to get $90 if we did a 3-week run.
Whoa.
And you're working, and then you go get your waiter job again or get back into the cab. But that's where you learn. That's, again, where you started. And if you're lucky, and I was lucky enough, I kept going. I would go to the Playwrights Horizon, which read new plays all the time. And you would just literally walk around the streets with your backstage going, "Oh, they're casting here, they're casting there." This is before I had an agent. And you'd show up and go, "Can I read? Do you have anything I can read for?" I did this at Joe Papp. I did this at the Public Theater. I did this at Playwrights Horizon. I did it at the New Dramatist. And I'd say, "Look, there would be a small part of a stone hippie in a play called The Last Christian." I said, "Look, anybody can do this part. I really want to do it. I really want to do it. Can I just do the reading? And they'd say, yeah, okay, and did the reading, and then now I knew the guy, right? So now I went back another month later and goes, oh yeah, we got this other play we're doing. It's called Visions of Kerouac. Do you want to read for this part Neil Cassidy? I go, sure, it's a good part. Yeah, read for it. I went in, I read for it, and boom, I got this part, and then we did a reading, and it was the part that got me started. Playing Neil Cassidy to Jack Kerouac, Lane Smith playing Jack Kerouac, Joey Pantaleone playing Gregory Corso,
Joey Pants.
Joey Pants,
And Neil
Joey
Cassidy,
Pants.
that's the second biggest part in On the Road in Kerouac's novel. Neil Cassidy. I mean,
Well, yeah, it was a beautiful.
speed freak, pretty much, right?
Oh, he was, yeah, total speed freak. And it's interesting because I didn't even really know at the time. I was hadn't been up, and I wasn't quite sure who the character was. I just knew the character at the moment from reading the play, and then obviously I realized who it was. A guy named Martin Duberman had written the play, a wonderful playwright, a wonderful writer. And then I realized who it was. But I came in so much not even playing Neil Cassidy. I came in playing what was on the page in the play, and it was just again one of those moments where you just got to keep showing up, and hopefully that door opens if you happen to be walking down 42nd Street at the right time. My first play for the public theater was because it was a Friday afternoon. I had to go into my waitering job at 6:30. I'm sitting in my apartment, probably half stoned. Well, I should just get on the subway, go down to the public theater, just do it, just see if anything's going on. I go down to the public theater, and they're auditioning something. And there's an actor that I go, hey, Bobby, is anything in this for me? He goes, yeah, you can read this part here. And they said, oh, great. And they came in, they said, oh, okay, yeah, we'll give you a shot. And I went in and read, and I got this part. And it was my playing a rock and roll star. And it was the first play up at the Lincoln Center for the public theater. But only because I got off my butt in the apartment and got on the subway and went down and begged just to see if there's anything in the door.
Yeah. Perseverance, the whole gig. Knock on
Perseverance.
doors,
Perseverance.
do what you got to do.
Later in your career, from like 2000 on, or maybe even earlier than that, you were a pretty well-known entity. When you showed up on the set of Sopranos, did any of the Soprano cast know who you were?
Well, I only worked with Tony Soprano. Yeah, I mean, I would walk in people who knew from Miami Vice or from Boy or Wiseguy or some other things. But I'll tell you the funny story of that is that Gandolfini. I'd never worked with an actor who I was so intimidated by his character. I wasn't intimidated. Gandolfini was sweet, but I couldn't get over the fact that I was sitting at a table with Tony Soprano.
Wow.
Even as a person, I'd never had this happen before. And I was so intimidated. It was just, I'd never felt this intimidation that I was sitting with the character that the actor that James Gandolfini had been playing. And I felt it was a weird dimension to be on.
So he was that good. He actually had convinced you that he was Tony Soprano. I mean, that's what you were looking at. Like you were talking
yeah, or I convinced myself.
I had read an interview with Stephen Van Zandt, and he said that Gandolfini, he said it was almost like the soap opera thing where he had to be on camera. David Chase wanted him on camera all the time. So every week his part was enormous, like an incredible memorization he had to do.
Oh, yeah. It was one of those moments of the merging of character and actor that happens sometimes that just goes beyond anything you could imagine.
Yeah.
You can see it. Some actors like George C. Scott and Patton.
Yeah.
It's just, there are just some parts. Peter O'Toole's Lawrence of Arabia. I mean, there's some parts where the actor and the character meld so well. It's fascinating when it happens.
But I'm surprised that you were intimidated by his character, because you had worked with Dennis Farina in Crime Story. You had worked with in Wiseguy. You had done a lot of crime work. You had worked with a lot of underworld people. What was it that made Gandolfini's character so intimidating?
I think, well, I don't know if it was it was the fact that I couldn't separate Gandolfini from the character. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
That I didn't, when we sat down at the table, and we just had this one little scene, and I was excited to do it, and it was really fun, and I got to play a New Orleans guy. But there was just something, again, it was this melding of character and the actor, and when he sat down at the table, I couldn't separate me, William Russ, from Tony Soprano. It wasn't Gandolfini that was sitting in front of me. It's because it was Gandolfini. I mean, it was Tony Soprano. And it was just a strange phenomenon, but I think it's that meld of, and of course I'd watched The Sopranos. I was a huge fan of it. And it was just an interesting feeling that I took note of that I hadn't felt before. And he was very gracious.
I got to ask you, on that note, when you were playing Wiseguy, when you did 14 appearances on Wiseguy, your character's name was Roger Loco Coco. Is that correct? Loco Coco? That's like Joe Bag of Donuts. Right? I mean, that's like...
Yeah, Roger Lococo. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
that was a very fun show to watch, to do.
I'm never surprised when you turn up on one of my favorite shows. You turned up on as Captain Garwood on Bosch. What was that like, working with that cast?
Well, I have to tell you, I knew a lot of the guys on the show, and they're Dan Pine and Aaron Lipstadt, the producers and directors, brought me in. But I have to say, the acting on that show, as a fan of the show, was so good that I said, "Oh man, I got to make sure my game's up to par." Man, it's like all of a sudden I'm jumping into the British Open here. I got to know what's going on. So, yeah, it was beautiful, and all those guys are really such terrific actors, and it really was a challenge. It was really, I really just had to really be there,
Frank,
try and be there with them.
Frank mentioned before that I graduated at 62 from UF, and I graduated a journalism program. And Michael Connolly, of course, the creator of Bosch, is in the journalism school of UF. He's God because he graduated from UF. Was he ever on set at Bosch?
Oh yeah,
Connolly
he was around. He was terrific. He came up, he introduced himself, and he was very kind and said, "Wow, thanks for being here." And I said, "Oh, thank you for having me here." Yeah, no, he was around. He's a very personable guy and seemed open and, loved being around the set. And yeah, he was around a lot.
Can you tell us a little about Titus Welliver, the character?
Oh, Titus. Well, yeah, I'll tell you a funny story. I first met Titus, again, 30 years ago. I was doing a show called Capital News that David Milch had written about the Washington Post, really. And somehow I met Titus, and he was with some other agent. We both had maybe we had the same agent at the time. And the funny thing about Titus is what I remember. He told the story about Chris Walken meeting him, and Chris Walken saying to him, Titus, are you the king of some country I'm not aware of?" I laughed so loud. I never forgot that. And I'd seen Titus. We'd run into each other over the years. But what a terrific actor. He on Milch's Deadwood, I reconnected with Titus.
Yeah. And Titus is a British actor or Australian actor?
No, Titus is, I don't know where he's from. He's from New Jersey, as far as I know. I don't know. No, he's great. He's a big jazz fan too. He's an interesting guy. He's very bright, very smart, and terrific actor, and fun to work with. Again, as I said, I've been very fortunate. And most of the wonderful actors I work with, the one thing about them, they have a great sense of humor. They have a great sense of humor about their work and themselves. I have to say that, and Titus is one of those guys.
Have you seen people who don't have a sense of humor about what they do?
Yeah, I've been around that a few times, but you know what? They just make themselves miserable.
Yeah, that's true.
And you've been on set, you guys, long enough, when you're miserable on a set, it's a long day.
It is a long day for sure. Fortunately, I have.
The hardest day I ever had, I'll tell you.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, the hardest day I ever had at work was a day on Wiseguy. There were four of us when we had to be in this house all day, and we had this scene where the four of us are trying to figure out what's going on. And at some point during the day, we got the giggles. And we couldn't do a scene without cracking each other up. And what we had to do, what made it the hardest day at work for me, despite rain, mud, anything, snow, I don't care, was that we couldn't hang out. We would have to go to our separate corners in the set, which is this big house. And when they said rolling, we would have to come together and look at each other and get the scene done and then walk away and not be able to talk to one another because we're laughing so hard. And it was the longest day I ever had on a set, I got to tell you.
Nothing is worse than the giggles. When a cast gets the giggles, they can't get out of it. And I don't know what it is.
He can't relate to that.
You guys, you never get the giggles, do you?
Oh, yeah, we get the giggles.
Derek got jokes today.
Just saying.
Derek got jokes.
Well, you guys, should be called a Mick, a Mook, and Giggles.
Yeah, that's what we're going to call you, Derek, from now on, Mr. Giggles.
Well, we definitely can't call you Giggles.
Did you, let's see, you did so many great, you were in so many great films, Right Stuff, American History X, Pastime, of course, which you run so many accolades for as a over-the-hill pitcher. Any favorites? What was your favorite film to work on and why?
Wow.
Or show or play, whatever.
Gosh. Wow. Good question. I love being I love being a part of the Right Stuff just because it's a great story. I just was happy to be in that. And I love American History X. It's
great film.
Such a dynamic film. And of course, Boy was an experience that I'm still grateful for to Michael and everyone around that had me, as I said, against my own will, a part of. It's just amazing to me what a life story it was and what a life lesson is that you never know. You never know. Sometimes you're resisting the most important thing you should be doing. It's a great lesson to learn how to really listen and be open to things that you might be pushing away or you can't see at the time. But Boy Meets World was certainly a wonderful experience, I gotta say.
What's the smallest residual check you've ever gotten from the Guild?
Well, there ain't many less than zero. But when the Guild sends you a bill for 1 cent.
A bill.
Then I owe you a cent? No, I don't think so.
I never understood how somebody could get 23 cents residual check when it cost 50 cents to mail it.
I know. I ask myself that every day because I get them every
Yeah, it should be that anything under $1 gets deposited into the Screen Actors Guild pension program.
Exactly, or the actors'
or the
fund.
actors' home.
Sure.
And instead of going through all the wear and tear of writing the check, mailing the check, which costs 55 cents to mail for 23 cents, it's crazy. But
I know it is crazy.
But
that's bureaucracy for you.
Yep. But you've had a wonderful career. Before we close, I want to ask Derek, Mr. Giggles, do you have any other questions?
One question I have is you mentioned first of all being on stage and how that's the actor's medium. What do you mean by that? It's the actor's medium, and why do they become so good from working on stage?
Well, because on the stage, there's nothing between you and the audience. It's as close as you can get to having a conversation with someone on the street. And there's no screen, there's no projector, there's no editing. And the behavior, which acting is, living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And that's what every actor has a gift for that. And, any 5-year-old has that gift, but hopefully you can refine it. And it's called living truthfully under imaginary circumstances. But there's I feel that the energy that comes through the actors expands beyond the stage. And it's interesting to see, I go to a community theater and sometimes see the difference, not a big difference, but I love community theater and the actors, and everyone does it for love. But the actor is the medium. He's the instrument through which the playwright writes his music. He's hitting the notes. He's the violin. He's the bass. He's the drums. He's the cello of the writer's orchestra, so to speak. He is the orchestra. And that'd probably be the best analogy. It's like how Chopin gets his novel through the orchestra to the audience directly. I think the idea is maybe it's directly, it's right in front of you. I think that's what I mean by that, Derek. I hope that answers your question.
It does.
You mentioned Peter O'Toole before. Peter O'Toole had one of my favorite lines in My Favorite Year, when he said, "I'm not an actor, I'm a movie star." There's such a big difference between being an actor and being a movie star. Of course.
Well, that's why you see movie stars are movie stars. A lot of them don't do stage. It would be hard, maybe, or they don't choose to. I'm not saying they couldn't, but it's a different medium, that's for sure. That's for sure.
You triggered a memory there when you talked about being on stage and telling the truth. Look at the audience and tell them the truth. I remember reading a line from Cagney, and he said, acting is about learning your lines, hitting your mark, look them in the eye, and tell them the truth. And stage, I guess the truth rings true. I mean, it's like you gotta convince people that you're on the level.
Exactly. And the audience is a true receiver of it. They know when something's wrong. They may not know why, but something doesn't quite work. In a film, you can, tighten up the cues. You can add a little music. You can change the lighting. You can change the frame, telling the audience, oh, this is important, or not. And on stage, the actor does it. Obviously, you have lighting and costumes and all that, but ultimately, the medium is the actor's life that he brings into that world on the stage.
Yeah, you can't do it over.
Right.
You get one take for the entire show, whereas, in movies or even in television, you get take.
Yeah, that's another thing. When you start the play, it's like playing, a sport. You start, you go till you're finished. There's no timeouts.
And the audience's reaction, I imagine, every night could be different. I mean, at different parts they'll laugh, at different moments they'll...
Of course. Yeah. And that's the thrill of it. And there's a couple of plays I did that the audience was so alive. Just amazing moments. And for an actor, it's special because also that night is gone. It's gone. You can't look at it again. It's that moment. It's over. And then you come back the next day and you try again.
It's incredible to me when you talk about Broadway and performing on Broadway. They do, 8 performances in 6 days or something like that. I mean, to do a performance and put your all into it, into a matinee at 2:00, and then have to come back and do it again is incredibly arduous, incredibly hard. And I give you all the credit in the world for mastering that craft, as well as all the other great performances you've given us over the years.
Well, thank you guys. It's been my pleasure, and you guys are so much fun to listen to.
Oh, thank you, man. We learned a lot. I tell you, I learned a lot about acting, and I don't know shit about acting, but I learned a lot about it today from you. You gave a clinic.
You're very kind. You're very kind, Billy. I appreciate it.
Rusty, thanks for being with us. I'll see you soon.
Hey, thank you, Frank. All the best.
You betcha,
Derek,
pal.
thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you, pal.
Be well.
We'll see you down the road.
Be safe. Later.
Well, you can see he really loves the craft.
Yep.
He really loves acting. I mean, he loves being an actor, and like you said, he's a bit of a purist. I mean, the Broadway thing is.
Well, we talk about all these actors. We talk about Stephen Lang. We talk about Don Scardino. They all talk about Billy Russ. We talk about Jeff McCracken. They all have got a certain, I don't know what in common. They all love it, and they all have waited for success.
Determined.
He was 26 years old driving a cab. I wanted to ask him how did he get his medallion.
That's a good question.
You know what I wanted to ask him? I wanted to ask him the name of the bar he tended the bar in New York. I probably would have known the name of the bar. I mean, but the flexibility again. The idea of being flexible, the idea of having to do what you got to do to stay alive.
We just had him on. You guys could have asked these questions. I don't
Yeah,
understand.
I mean, I didn't know if anybody else would be interested in what bar he tended the bar in, but it interests me. But you just said before about the matinee, how you can do 8 shows on Broadway. Doing the stand-up bit that I was doing for the few years I was doing it, I could go out on a Friday night and kill on a 7 o'clock show. I mean, just destroy. And I still hated to come back at 9 o'clock to do the second show. No matter, it was just like I said, I did it. I did the bit.
I just did it.
I did it. I don't want to do it again tonight. Tomorrow night, all right. But so it must be really murder to do a matinee.
I remember one time on Daddy Dearest, Don Rickles was going to Vegas. And Richard said, how many shows do you do in Vegas? Now, in the early days, Don would do a midnight show, a 2 a.m. show, a 4 a.m. show. The 4 a.m. show would be for the other performers in Vegas. But now Don was at the height of his career. He looked at Richard and he said, 1 show. He said, you do 2.
That's right. You had to do it. I mean, Fridays and Saturday nights in any comedy club, it's 2 shows. It's 7 o'clock and the 9 o'clock show, or the 10 o'clock show. But yeah, it was tough the second show. Always
tough indeed.
But we've had stand-up comics here, and they've talked about Friday night, the late show, because now you get the bridal parties and all that shit. And it's all about them. It's not about you anymore. You're on stage. It's tough.
Well,
but he was great. What a great actor.
He was great.
Great get, Frank.
And nice again, congratulations on being named one of the 40 over 40 podcasters in America.
Where's the residuals, Frank? Where's the check? Is it in the mail?
It's coming. It's coming for sure.
It's coming all over me.
Oh, God.
It's coming.
Oh, God.
Put me in, Coach. I don't smoke.
Say goodnight, Billy.
Good night, fellas. And ladies and
yeah.
And
there's no, after that last joke, there's no ladies still watching.
Thanks for tuning in.
Be well.
Take care.
Next week's guest, college basketball's power brokers, the Pump Brothers.